Good evening,
Take two.
students. Good evening, visitors to Ravenwood, and welcome to our wonderful, wonderful cast. We are going to be doing something a little special tonight. And as we are missing a couple of our players, we are going to be having a kind of student seminar, Q&A panel to discover the secrets and behind the scenes of Ravenwood, a Monsterhearts story. I am your producer and host for this evening, Mistress Winter. So, let's go ahead and get this started off. So first, I'm actually going to turn the spotlight on our amazing Mistress of Ceremonies, Abby Marie Carter. This is your very first campaign that you've ever run. This is the first time you've ever been an MC, a first time you've been a GM or storyteller, lead storyteller, I will say, though you have played in many. What has your experience been like? How have you been enjoying this? And I will ask follow-up questions.
Okay. Yes, it is my very first time doing this. Um, and it's always been something I've been interested in doing, but absolutely terrified of doing. I've considered running D&D games, I've considered running Pathfinder games, but I struggle with the systems as a player. There's just so much to know that I don't feel comfortable at all running those games. I was always interested and in running something, but was really, really scared. And then I got this idea for a university of monsters to play in the Monsterhearts University. Yes, a monster university, because I'm also obsessed with Monsterhearts. Like, it's probably my favorite TTRPG. And I was chatting with Winter about it, and just all of a sudden, I was putting out a casting call for a game, and I was terrified. Like, that night, I remember telling my partner, like, why am I doing this? I'm so scared. I shouldn't have done this. And then I started doing it, and I really, really loved it. It's no less scary every time I do it, but like, I have an acting degree and love being on stage, and I get scared every time before I go on stage too, because I love it and want to put on a good show for the people watching. So it's been terrifying, but really rewarding, and to get to do this story with my wonderful cast, to get to interact with the audience and things like that, I'm very proud of myself and proud of my cast and the story that we've been creating. So yeah.
Yeah, it's been well received. Your MC role has been well received by audience and players alike, especially for players who are relatively new to Monsterhearts as well, like our very own Juicy Garland, who joined in with one of my Tabletop Tuesday games, and I dare say may have fallen in love with the system.
Oh, completely. I had never played it before, and I became instantly obsessed. This gave me something I was craving so much in TTRPGs that I hadn't had, and I instantly fell in love with it.
And it was a lot of fun seeing your characterization, as well as yours, Emma, because you came in at that same time, did you not?
Yes, that was the first stream that I ever did on your channel, Winter, though we'd worked together for another thing for my podcast network that hasn't quite come out yet, but will. It's more geared towards spooky season, so I'm so excited for it to come out. You have no idea.
Me too, yeah.
So we will be talking about that all the way until it comes up because it was so good. But that was the first stream I ever did on Winter's channel. And it was... I usually get nervous about playing with new groups, actually, but the way that everyone just meshed together immediately, it was like all the discomfort and nervousness gone as soon as we started playing.
Oh, absolutely. And the Tabletop Tuesdays were supposed to be, kind of, quick one-offs and just for people to experience new games and new, play with new people and stuff like that. And yeah, the four of you, I believe it was Abby, Emma, Juicy, and Stouffer. The four of you took to it so quickly and were creating these beautiful characterizations. And I admit that there was some ideas that I pulled out of that quick two-part series to put into the Monsterhearts podcast that I'm working with Emma and some other people, including Abby and Juicy, to produce here very shortly. So more to come on that. Juicy, what was your decision process in selecting a skin and creating Bobby?
Yeah, so I, in a lot of ways, was responding to our one-shot. Because with our one-shot, what I did was I dug down really deep to my worst 16-year-old impulses. I took all of the things that I felt were the worst parts about me at that age, and I amplified them as far as I could. And just lasered them into what I thought a vampire should be. And for this, I really wanted to pivot to someone who wasn't me, right? I really wanted to jump into something that I could relate to, which is sort of that monstrous werewolf energy, which I'm enjoying tremendously. But I really wanted to take the character into somewhere they would be uncomfortable with, because I like the struggle Bobby has to face, which is that it's the struggle with control over himself. And ultimately, I think that's the core of who he is someone who is terrified of losing control. And I think the werewolf as the archetypal monster is really about losing that control. So I wanted to really dig into what that meant for Bobby as a person. So when I was choosing between different skins, I considered doing vampire again, but I had done that. And then I was sort of flipping between, I remember I had narrowed it down to 3, which was werewolf, fae, and witch. And all of those spoke to me as being interesting. And when we sat for our session 0, Stouffer wanted fae. So I was flipping between werewolf and witch, and I just deleted witch and went with werewolf because that was the more interesting struggle to sort of figure out. And then it was about figuring out who this person was. So going through sort of the werewolf moves and looking at the darkest self, that was the most interesting thing. And then where is this boy who struggles with control from? Where is he gonna have to find the biggest contention with struggle? And I wanted to place him in the Midwest, where it's all about turning within himself and hiding away. So that's why I went to Wisconsin, because that for me, it sort of has a personal moment. This is probably very personal, but I actually figured out I was gay in Eau Claire, Wisconsin when I was 14.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So we have family friends who, when I grew up in Western Massachusetts. But we had family friends who moved out to Wisconsin when I was very young, and we wanted to visit them years later when I was 14. So we drove out all the way to Wisconsin, and I ended up staying behind while my mom and my sister drove back home. And I stayed a whole month over the summer there. And being away from my mom for that long for the first time in my life, I kind of had to deal with my own thoughts. And like our family friend, her adult daughter had like remarried, and her like stepson was openly gay and a little older than me, and he was beautiful, and it just confused the hell out of me. And and I had inklings that I liked boys, and it really like upset me. It was a struggle, whatever.
Sure.
We all go through that when we're gay, but like it told me that I was gay, and I just figured it out that summer. And I like went back to that moment, which was a struggle for me with control. So that is sort of why I went back to Wisconsin in my mind, figuring out who Bobby was. So that's where that sort of comes from when I was building the character. That's why I got that specific with him, was because of that moment. Like his family is totally different from my own, and everything else is different. But
sure.
like, that's why he's from Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think that is a common character building tactic, is to pull from something you know, something that you are, something that you've experienced, and planting that as a seed almost to cultivate and give life to something new.
Yeah, and it gives emotional resonance to who he is.
Sure.
So it's something that I can really latch onto to give his motivations emotional power, because it resonates with me, right? So when I'm exploring who he is, it's meaningful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. Emma, how about you? What was the impetus for Mika and your selection of Infernal? As a follow-up question, if we get around to it, if we remember it, where did the idea of Master Grimm and the use of the Grimm's fairy tales essentially to connect with your dark power come about?
So, to start off, my inspiration for Mika was actually from two places. So she actually started as a D&D character that I had attempted to play in a different group. And it just ended up not working out. I ended up pulling out of the game because the things that I wanted to find with the character weren't really coming to fruition, and there was some interparty drama on top of that, which just made it not a comfortable situation to be in. But I had always loved the concept of... The original concept was a cleric who'd found evidence of some sort of forgotten god, and was using it to find things out about who they were as a person. And because they felt like, because they'd been sort of told their entire life that they have to fit into this family, but oh, this isn't your real family. They were trying so hard to sort of come to terms with, well, who am I then? Who is my real family? And when I saw Stouffer play the Infernal in our Tabletop Tuesday,
yeah.
It clicked for me that could be a really cool concept to pull into Monsterhearts. So when we did our session 0, we kind of talked things through about like the ideas I had for the backstory. I think the Grimm's fairy tales part came after Abby and I talked a little bit, because that wasn't an idea I had originally. But I feel like after we sort of did follow-up after I'd presented my original backstory, that was how Master Grimm kind of came about, and the Grimm's fairy tales connection came into being.
Very cool. Ping-ponging back to Juicy, we have a question from Drake Fires. Is the duality of yourself at that age projected into the character concept?
I don't think so. I think that I don't know. To me, like, it more of the idea of like code switching is in Bobby, right? So like there are so many parts of my life where I have to present as a different person. And that is far more important to who Bobby is as a person, right? Like who he tries to be with his family is so much more different than who he gets to be at school. And I think that's more important than him as a person versus him as a werewolf. Because he's always trying to push the werewolf part away. He's always running from it.
Right.
And only recently in his own life is he kind of starting to embrace that part because of that influence of Jonathan in his life. And that's been a struggle and a roller coaster lately. Thanks. Yeah, so no, that's less about like me at that age. But although like his own struggle with coming out it is something vaguely and tangentially related to that experience, my own like coming to terms with my own sexuality and identity and my own coming out was and is very different than Bobby's. My coming out story is much more like a screaming battering ram than Bobby's could possibly be. And we are very different people in that way. So no, it's there's not actually, I think, a lot of projection so much as inspiration.
Fair enough. I think that's a great distinction. Back over to Emma. Your... Oh, I had the question. The misplacement that Mika feels, is that in any way compounded by a sense that they are not worthy of or not enough to fit in with their new family?
In a way, yes. Because the whole reason, one of the key reasons that she sought out Master Grimm in the first place was to find out about her real family, but also she grew up as the one mortal in a family of witches.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing her siblings cast all this crazy magic, oftentimes using it on her, because she couldn't do anything back and they knew they weren't going to get hexed in response, was probably... like, it was probably very traumatic for her, especially as a younger child. And then carrying that over to then being told, oh, because our entire family goes to this university of monsters, you're not allowed to be normal. You also have to go to this university of monsters because we're a legacy family and it's important. So once again, she's sort of been shoved in this direction that she has no control over and no idea how to navigate. And they've just kind of been like, it's like throwing her in the pool and being like, sink or swim, up to you. And it's like, but I don't know how to swim. So in finding Master...
arm floaties.
Exactly! But in finding Master Grimm, she was able to say, okay, I get to be special in that I get to have this power now. And I get to do something to earn that power. Which is why, even though he scares the shit out of her, she keeps coming back again and again, because it's like, I'm nothing without this power that she at least feels that way to begin with. This, I am nothing without this power that he's given me, because otherwise I'm just prey.
Well,
and then...
oh, sorry, finish.
But also, he can give her answers that she could never find on her own.
Is that the trade-off? Or has there been moments where Mika has obtained power, used power from Master Grimm? Because so far, at least to my recollection, in the sessions that we've had, Mika really hasn't vied for that power or bargained for that power to do anything more supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
So have there been like moments off screen essentially that Mika has tapped into that power? Is there a reservation of approaching that power?
I think the reason she's been so reserved about approaching it is she already, at least with the start, Master Grimm's been getting very angry about how she hasn't returned on her end of the bargain. My thought on it was that, excuse me, my thought on it was that she's utilized a lot of that power up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's like, hey, I gave you all this stuff. Where's my end of the deal? And so she's been sort of hesitant to use it, especially now that she has friends around her that that are supernatural and that care about her and she cares about them. And this is where it's going to be interesting to get into what comes of Mika's story, because the question is going to be, how far does she take it as far as the potential of betraying those friends to serve Master Grimm? Like the fact that she gave Bobby that book.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be interesting when Bobby opens it up and this horrifying thing comes out and is like, hello, do you want to serve me? He's going to be like, Mika, what'd you do?
I'm going to turn it over to Abby. What, you said in our chat that you're getting these ideas, listening to players talk. What is your planning process, however much planning you do, that I know how much you do, but for our audience sake, as far as your planning, how you trace the path of this story and present new options, new challenges and stuff before the players.
So as far as my planning process, I feel like the best way to describe my planning process is that there isn't one, which is not entirely true. But 90% of what I do and give my players, I make up on the spot. I think I've sometimes have an outline. I usually have a couple things planned out for the characters to push them in case they don't want to go anywhere, or if there's something that's stalling or things like that. But a lot of it comes very organically, because I feel like that's where I kind of thrive as a storyteller, is having this structure, essentially having like the sandbox that I can play in. So I have the structure and I know where the story is going ultimately, but other than that, I'm just kind of throwing things. And then within the sessions, what I tend to do is just look for opportunities to twist the knives, as so to speak. All of my players have given me permission to torture their characters, essentially, to do whatever I want. And that's also kind of what I wanted from this story, as I wanted to take it to darker places. And that's another reason I set it in a college instead of a high school, because I felt more comfortable taking those risks and really kind of digging those nails in for college students rather than like minors with high school students. So a lot of it is just kind of seeing the opportunities for how I can throw a wrench in my players and the characters' plans, or really twist the knife of the stuff that my players are already dealing with their characters, or just finding those emotional beats to cause strife for themselves and see if I can start causing strife between them as well, or also giving them moments where they do get to come together, because it's also very important to me that the players and therefore their characters don't become hopeless, that there is still this this chance and this hope for a happy ending, that they don't lose everything and have nothing to fight for anymore. But I also enjoy taking them as far as I can possibly get them to the brink of becoming hopeless.
Really?
So
I hadn't noticed.
It's particularly clear, I think, in what I've been doing with Bobby. It's been very fun for me to get to pull on those strings with Bobby, in kind of all of the ways, with his mother, with Jonathan, giving him Eloise, and then just the way that Bobby interacts with the other players as well. So my planning process is like that. For the most part, there isn't one. I almost never have the end of a session planned out. I know that my players are constantly annoyed with me for leaving them on cliffhangers. Those are all always made up on the spot.
Hey, I am having fun too.
I'm so happy that you are.
I love it.
But yeah, it's just more a matter of taking in what my players are giving me and what they, as characters, their characters are going, so that I can stay true to the story and follow those through lines that I've been throwing at them, but also allowing myself and them enough freedom to kind of do whatever we want, and really, really paying attention to those emotional beats.
Absolutely. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions? Anything that we want to touch on?
One thing I will say, because you brought it up earlier, is like the fact that you brought up that I loved the game the second we played our one shot, and one of the reasons, one of the reasons for that is that the game is rules light, which doesn't necessarily make a game good, but it's rules light and it's efficient, and every single rule is designed to amp up the drama and drive the character towards like just higher stakes every single time. Everything is geared towards failing forward and generating higher stakes always. And I'm so tired of games, D&D 5e in particular, that has such low freaking stakes. You can't die, nothing matters. And I'm so tired of it. And this game just gives me everything I want, which is just high stakes, high drama. Everyone's making bad choices all the time, and it embraces it with every single sentence. Yeah, like it just, everything is driven towards that end, and it's just so refreshing to have that permission structure and motivation to just go hard on making bad choices and seeing what trouble you can get into, and I love it. And that's why I'm having so much fun, and why, like, when Abby shoves in the dagger and twists the blade, I couldn't be more thrilled to have her make me cry on camera. It's so fun. It's just the best.
Please, Mistress, may I have another?
And I am not a sub by nature, but goddamn. Please, mommy, step on me.
Aw, step on me emotionally.
I've never had so much power. I don't know how to feel about it.
How about you, Emma? You, when I met you, it was through a casting call. I don't remember from where. It was probably like the initiative order or something. I don't remember. But you were put out a call for the candle. 10 candles. 10 candles.
Yes. I think I actually put it in the Heroes and Hooligans server now that I think about it. But
that's probably right too. But that in itself is rules light. It is it is designed to kill hope in its players and just destroy them scene by scene. And I loved it. But how does Monsterhearts compare to 10 Candles and your experience and what you like playing?
Well, so I had actually played Monsterhearts before jumping into the Tabletop Tuesday. I had a friend who discovered it, and like Juicy said, she was struggling a lot with 5e and feeling like she could run meaningful games in that system. But she picked up Monsterhearts, and she was like, oh my god, this is perfect for me. And she got so excited about running games in it, and us picking up that system with her games is kind of what led me to start seeking out other TTRPGs in the first place. And so I found a video about 10 Candles somewhere. I don't remember where, but it led me to buy the PDF version, and just reading through the book, like, there was something about saying up front, okay, these characters are going to die at the end. There is no changing that. And then making them struggle to survive anyway, even though the players know that the inevitable is coming.
Right.
That makes it so interesting, because it sort of plays into this human idea that, like, you can't give up hope until there is no hope left. And
Hope
so
into your dying breath.
mm-hmm. And so going from that to... It was interesting, because going from that game that immediately designs those very high stakes that are doomed to fail, and then Monsterhearts, which develops those high stakes in a very different way through all of the different mechanics, and saying you can still succeed or fail. And they have that part in the book where they say, like, you can make the safe choices, but is that fun for everybody? And I love that, because it has made me, both during the Tabletop Tuesday and during some of the things as Mika, sit there and think, well, I could make the safe choice to protect my character, but what's that gonna do for anybody?
Right.
And that was what inspired me to give Bobby the book in the first place, because I was like, I can make the safe choice and not screw over a fellow party member and make them deal with the horrible monster that is Master Grimm.
Where's the fun in
But
that?
that's what's
Exactly.
so good about Monster
I know,
Hearts. That
yeah.
you can screw each other over and
Mhm.
still play together.
So I think I know the answer to this, but you know, we have a wonderful audience who are asking some questions. So I'm gonna pose the question as is: what choices would the players go back and change? And as a follow up, what would our MC change to that end? So whoever wants to go first can start.
I, the player, would go back and change nothing. I love the way things have turned out. All the mess. It's been great. I couldn't be happier with this roller coaster. I only hope it gets messier and harder.
I have no doubt for that, considering our MC. How about you, Emma? Anything?
I don't know if there's anything that I can think of that I would necessarily change for Mika. I mean, I'm trying to think. Maybe I would have leaned more in some instances. I feel like it would have been very interesting with the appearance of the Grim Reaper, especially since Mika knew what it was, if she would have leaned into that power that she had a little more in that moment, and like reached out to Master Grimm and been like, hey, I'm gonna die here. You want something? You need to give me something.
I mean, maybe that is a regret that Mika holds on to, because by being passive, it's possible that that inactivity caused Bobby Bobby's wild rampage that hurt Jonathan. Now, luckily, nobody died, so maybe the guilt is mitigated that way.
You
but
know of.
that you know of.
Oh gosh, I don't think she's really had time to think about it since.
No, that's true. That's true.
Like, it just happened in session, but
did.
once she gets time to sit down and think about it, I think that will be one of her regrets, is like, I have this power now. I could have stopped it, but instead I was thinking like human Mika and not this new Mika that has access to power.
Wonderful.
So yeah, that's probably the one thing I would change.
All right. How about you, MC?
Well, I think the only thing that I would go back and change is, like, personally with myself, I mentioned that I was terrified to do this and still get nervous before every single session. But, like, the beginning, Winter can attest, before the first probably 2 sessions, especially before the first one, I was absolutely terrified. I felt like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I can possibly do here. I shouldn't be doing this. And so I think the only thing that I would kind of go back and change is giving myself more permission to drive scenes and like add things, add more chaos earlier on. I think I've really found my groove now. And but yeah, just essentially, it is okay. I am not taking over the story from my players. We are telling this story together, and throwing things at them is my job. But other than that, I am really, really pleased with how this is going, with how my players are playing their characters, how their characters are reacting to things, how we're telling the story together. I'm really, really happy with this story.
I think that you are, it seems that your players are, and I think we get some great reactions from our audiences. We even have a couple regulars that we really appreciate and love all so much. So to that end, on the opposite side of things, instead of looking from the past to the future, what do you hope for your characters? Like, what do you expect will happen? What do you hope will happen? Where do you hope they'll end up?
I hope Bobby can manage to just frickin' let go. I don't know that he will, but I hope so. I expect that's going to be a struggle. And having to contend with coming out to his mother is going to be rough. Also figuring out this whole murder thing, what's that about? That's also a thing he has to remember is an issue.
Yeah, you know.
He's got a lot of emotional balls to juggle.
Lots of balls.
Worry, I'll probably drive it home a little more in the next couple of sessions. Don't worry. Don't you worry. Bobby will know.
The bodies will hit the floor.
Remember.
Literally, but also I think it's really funny, personally, that he's so like overwhelmed with his own bullshit that like the murder thing is just kind of number 2, and I think that's funny. Frankly. I don't think that's a problem with you, Abby. I think that's a problem with him. That's not your fault. That is not your fault.
No, I know. I love that that's the case. I just am also very excited for the opportunities it affords me to make sure Bobby remembers that murders are happening.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh no, indeed.
There are so many possibilities there, and I am terrified to think of any of them.
Yay!
There's always got to be that one person that's like, oh, real life is really scary, but wait, what, there's murder? I forgot there was murder.
I mean, that may be the even point of the entire story, is that amidst all of this fantastical stuff, the frickin' bodies and all this other stuff, that in the end, it's the real life that's the scariest. Yes, absolutely. How about you, Emma? Mika?
Well, I expect that her life will become chaos pretty soon. Now that Bobby's spiral has ended, between all the Master Grimm stuff, because I'm expecting that now that she's sort of fallen away from that, this deity is much scarier than I thought they were, to, okay, now I have tasks to do for him. I need to make sure I'm doing those tasks. There's going to be moments where she forgets that the costs of some of those things and the things that she does in order to achieve those tasks might be a bit much for really what she should be doing, and could potentially hurt the feelings of, or like have greater consequences with those around her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Especially now that she has to get a feather from a professor that Master Grimm wants back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so as a follow-up to all of that, Abby, without, obviously giving any spoilers or anything, are there any hints that you can give us in terms of what is on your mind to happen next?
Well, all of the characters have to contend with very big things, and I think that I have tortured most of the characters except for, well, I've tortured Bobby, and I will continue to do so. Amity is going through it currently. Damon is kind of paused in where his stuff is, and so it'll be really fun to explore the stuff with his sister when he joins us again. I don't know. He's gone.
And
he's gone
nobody
right now.
cares.
Well, they just remembered. It's like, wait,
It's like,
Damon's
hey, we haven't heard from Damon in a while.
Damon's a ghost that exists.
Where
Where did he go?
Oh, he passed on. He went into the light. Go into the light.
But I feel like with Mika, I haven't pushed her as far as I can, and so that's kind of on my mind to continue to really ramp that up for Mika.
I cannot
see what
wait.
effect it has
Yes.
on the rest of the group, and some things that will come out with other characters that connect back to Mika. And just kind of the things that y'all go through individually, or you think you go through individually, and the connections that they actually have on each other. And then the other big thing is I'm really excited to see how y'all are figuring things out, because some of y'all are so close.
So yeah,
So close.
behind
But
the
not
scenes.
quite there.
Yeah, behind the scenes, Abby and I are texting each other, and I'm just like, oh, they almost had it. Like,
They're so
they're
close.
like right on top of the answer, and it's like near misses, and it's awesome. I'm like, man, the players are so smart. Like,
I'm so happy the things
the
that
most-
I'm putting down are getting picked up.
I had the most insane theory last session. And I don't know if I want to verbalize it.
okay,
I really want to know what it is.
yeah, now we know.
I said
Now
it to
you
you,
gotta
Abby.
say it. Yeah.
I said it to Abby. Fine, I'm going to say it because it's hilarious.
Do I remember?
In my mind, I was like, did Jonathan send a Reaper after my friends to cause me to go into my darkest self to go after him so he could get turned into a werewolf. Is there some conspiracy? And it has nothing to do with the headmistress whatsoever. Am I being manipulated by this rich boy?
And I think all I said when you told me that was like, guess you'll have to wait and
And then I instantly followed it up with, don't tell me. So I have no clue. Absolutely don't know. I didn't want to know, but I wanted to verbalize it.
Which I will say, there are some parts of that that are absolutely batshit and not what is happening. And there are some parts of that that either are the truth or very close to the truth. So have fun with that. Have fun figuring it out.
I have my own suspicions. Yes, I have suspicions. Bobby is clueless, but Juicy.
Oh, yes, of course.
Juicy has some suspicions.
Player knowledge, character knowledge.
Yep. There's a crowbar
They're
of
two different
separation.
things.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. And I like to think I do a pretty good job of keeping those separate. But yeah, because Bobby is just a sweet idiot. He's just.
So in the session 0 and the lead up to the start of this series, you all did a lot of world building, developing the campus, developing the town around the campus, as well as some important key figures. Are there any characters or places that we developed that we haven't seen yet that you would be interested in seeing come into the story? Because for instance, we've had the Corvus Cup and the witchy couple who run it, but are there other characters that, regardless of how important they are, that you would like to interact with or see enter the story? Everybody's looking through the list now.
Have we yet been to the just aesthetic spaces that I like? Have we yet been to the greenhouse?
I don't think we have.
No, we haven't.
We've been to the lake.
Yeah, we've been to the lake. We've been to the calf. We've been to Witch's Neck Lake, Corvus Cup. Then, because I have the list, we had Emma. There was the clothing store that you came up with.
Yes.
Which was La Mode du Papillon, right?
Yes.
And then there was Widow's Peak Park, which was a ledge trail with an overlook. And then there was the Vanderboot Greenhouse, which was an old family contribution. It has their name on it. And Clip Zip, which was a dance club off campus.
Yeah.
Those were the notable locations that we had come up with that I have listed.
That's what I have here too.
Same.
We have mentioned Frat Row. No one in our party has been to Frat Row, and I think that's going to be a really interesting moment when the nerdy werewolf, the nerdy infernal, the awkward fae, and the cool ghost end up going to Frat Row.
Well, I was invited, but
you were.
I redirected that.
Yes, you did, in a very sexy way.
Yes, I did.
I personally really want y'all to explore Club Zip. And I'm trying to find natural ways to get you there.
I mean...
But also, if it never happens, it never happens. That is, the nature of this, and that's totally okay, too.
Jonathan's a good way to do that.
That is true.
I bet you could convince Amity.
Yeah,
bright lights,
I think Amity
loud noises.
frequents there anyway. So.
Yeah.
Amity's just been dealing with their own stuff with,
danger.
Everything.
Yeah.
and not being able to receive messages from the Fey realm because their magic's being blocked, which is
Or now even go to the Fey realm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then what other people did we have? Okay. So we met Todd Spielman, right? Vampire?
I don't think we did.
No, I don't think so.
The fratty vampire? No, that probably would have come
Okay.
up on Frat Row
Yeah.
if Bobby had gone.
Right, and
I
then there
mean,
was
you guys have been to class.
yeah.
That's true. We keep skipping a bunch of class.
And there was
I just skipped one. It really
Yeah.
hasn't been that long. Of
Did we even do
our?
our project?
that's this coming week.
Yeah,
Okay.
that hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
we skipped class and then class was canceled.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then there's Marsha Redford the Ghoul, who's a space case. And then
Yes.
we met Rhapsody.
Yes,
The
we've
fairy.
met Rhapsody.
Then Jonathan we've met, Jonathan Carver,
We've met Jonathan.
which was the most New England name I could think of, which I regret that first name so hard. A little inside baseball for the audience is I accidentally named Jonathan, which is my real life partner's first name, which is endlessly hilarious to me and weird.
Hopefully that they're nothing alike.
Absolutely no, it's a weird role reversal in a lot of ways. And then Audrey Barrett, who was a changeling and a theater major. Got Wendy.
I'll throw in a bit of kind of behind the scenes for our lovely audience that it's something that I did for my games, and I kind of passed it on to Abby as she was starting her own game, is when we do our session 0, some of the first things that we create are the world and the people in it. And we kind of outsource or we distribute the responsibility for creating those things. So we kind of did a round robin and went around to the different players and we're like, hey, what's one place that you would go to on campus that you feel safe or that you would completely avoid? Who is like the the theater geek or whatever? We would have our players invest in the creation of the world because it helps to establish that investment, that emotional investment and connection that they feel to the world. And I think that's important, especially for Monsterhearts, which is its lifeblood are the emotional strings. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Are the emotional strings that our players have to each other, to the characters within the world, and it's important to involve them in the creation process because we want them to be invested in it. Yeah.
And one thing too is that it fills the world with more variety because it's different characters and spaces and ideas from different people. So it all sort of comes in with different flavors. And like, for example, like none of these characters that we all thought of at first really had any particular like intent behind them. So like Jonathan, I did not intend to be a romantic relationship for my character. And then it ended up just happening.
And then I decided it will be.
Yes, you did.
Wow.
And I have loved what has happened. This has been an amazing story we're all telling together. Like, I love this game. Like, I love playing this so much. And what a wonderful story we're telling. But the fact that Jonathan is my in-game boyfriend is the funniest thing on the planet. When I listen to this game out loud after work, and then Jonathan walks down the hallway, and he hears his own name from my own voice on my computer, crying.
I could just see him like walk past the door and then he just like backs up and
So it's like, I'm gonna go walk the dog.
That's an interesting question. Does your partner watch Juicy?
No, he doesn't care about anything I do. That's how we live our lives. We've been together 19 years.
Fair.
Wow, congratulations.
Wow, yeah.
That's some
Yeah, we
fun
basically entered a lesbian relationship.
Wait, what does that mean?
Have you?
Winter resents that comment.
Well, I first
Gay
want to
Gay
know
men
what
are
it
supposed to
means.
date for 3 weeks, and they do that on an endless loop. Lesbians have one date and then they move in.
Yeah,
That's the way it
that's
works.
the thing.
Yeah, go out to dinner for the first date and go haul for the second. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Exactly. Well, actually, the first date just never ends. You go out to dinner, and then you spend the night together, and then you spend the night together, and then you spend the night together, and your friend texts you, "How'd the date go?" And you're like, "It's still going," and then you move in together. So technically, the first date like never ends.
Right, and then 3 weeks later, you have 2 chocolate labs and a Forester.
There you go.
A Subaru Forester. Yep. The
Hides my Subaru Forester.
oh my gosh. Yeah, no, you are. Yeah, you're living the lesbian life. Yeah. Do you have cats?
We have 2.
Yep.
2 cats and a dog.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, that's. I have a cat only by default, I guess. I don't know. My cat, well, is not my cat. It's my stepdaughter's cat, but we're watching him. But he's been with us for almost a year now, so it's like
Wonderful.
And
I'm Yeah.
I still argue that I'm his favorite. So
And I fill in as the family wine aunt on both sides.
Oh heck yeah.
Yeah, definitely the wine aunt.
We love.
Oh I think my wife is the wine aunt. Yeah.
I will never be the wine aunt, but I'm definitely the vodka aunt, and I'm so excited to be that.
I support that.
You're gonna be like the free-spirited bisexual aunt that.
The vodka aunt.
Yeah.
I'm just here as the nerdy aunt.
Fair enough.
That's like, hey,
Perfect.
you want me to tell you about Dungeons and Dragons? That's cool.
'Cause I can tell you about Dungeons and Dragons.
Emma, I have a question for you,
Ooh,
actually.
okay.
So, what skins appeal to you?
Ooh, that's such a hard question, because I had also, when I was thinking about playing, I had also been intrigued by the Witch and the Fae, because those are always interesting ones. And a lot of the games that I've played recently have had some sort of Feywild element. My D&D game that I run has been very Feywild focused ever since my party went there and decided to bring back a Fey with them. So that was interesting.
We're keeping him.
That was literally... So, like, you guys can go hear this in the podcast, because it's there, but they went, they did something for the Fey courts, because there was this necromancer that was going to cause all sorts of trouble. And in exchange, the Fey kings and queens were like, we're gonna give you all these cool magic items, because I need an excuse to drop cool things for my players, but also you can take one small boon. And one of my players was like, I can't figure out what I want. And then looked at the NPC that had been hanging out with them / like introduced to them to the Fey realm and was like, I want her to come with me as my companion. And then they were just like, are you okay with this? And she was like, I guess. And so they were like, okay.
So what about those skins appeals to you?
I think the Fae is very interesting because it's this idea of coming from this new place and having this very different worldview and then having to, kind of like what Amity's doing, completely adjust to something new, and also figure out how to find your power and your way in it, when, again, it's that sink or swim idea. It's like, hey, none of this is familiar to you. The politics and the way these people talk is not familiar to you, but you have to find it anyway.
Mm.
I also think The Witch is interesting because, like, one of my friends played it in one of the games that we did for fun, and watching how she was able to manipulate the game on such a minute level that it was barely noticeable or completely unnoticeable by any of the NPCs or the players involved, because she was so subtle about it, was so interesting to me that I thought it would be like, it would be so interesting to have one of those characters that's just like, I don't care about receiving credit. I don't care if anyone knows what I can do. I know what I can do. So let me show you and have you reap the consequences without even knowing it was me. And that will bring me joy.
Cool.
That was well said. Any final questions? Any comments?
What about you, Abby? What are your favorite skins and why?
Just immortal.
Yeah, she's not wrong, though. So first of all, I'm obsessed with Monsterhearts and want to play every single skin. I want to play fan-made skins. I want to play the Forgotten skins. I want to play all of the core skins. Like, I am so obsessed with this game. I'm, like, coming up with characters constantly that I could just pull from whenever I'm a part of a Monsterhearts game. I'm gonna, like, start making people in my personal life play it with me just so I can play more characters. But for me personally, the Fae is always really interesting to me. I've never played a Fae, but I really want to, because I'm just kind of obsessed with Fae and the beauty and darkness and kind of the fish out of water type thing. I've moved a lot in my life, so I feel like I can relate to the Fae skin in that way. But my all-time favorite skin is the Mortal, because I think the finding power in victimhood is a really cool thing to explore and a very important thing. And I think it's something that's very, very personal to me without divulging too much. It's a position I've found myself in a lot, and a position I've judged others for being in a lot without being able to find the power for myself. And so being able to explore that and find power in victimhood is kind of why I absolutely love the Mortal skin, and always consider playing it because I think it's very interesting. I also love the idea of being the only normal one among monsters. I think that creates super interesting dynamics, and there's a lot of ways to pull at strings that what happens around everyone else. So those are my favorite skins, but I'm just kind of obsessed with the game and the system and want to play everything.
We have a follow-up question. What is your favorite Fae?
I don't even know. I'm just so fascinated by like all types of Fae, I think, and the different mythologies, and I read a lot. And so just iterations of Fae in fantasy books, and I don't think I have a favorite one. And I think what I like so much about Fae is that there are so many different ones. And so, like, I grew up with, like, Tinkerbell and fairies and the cute little fairies and stuff like that, and I love those. But I love the Fae idea of a Seelie and Unseelie court. I love the Fae idea that Stouffer has come up with for our world, which is that, like, there is no Unseelie or Seelie court. It is, like, every Fae themselves has a Seelie and and an unseelie side. I like the idea of mermaids and sirens, which are sometimes considered fae. Yeah, I don't know that I have a favorite one. I'm just kind of obsessed with them.
I think that's,
Mythology,
yeah.
fantasy, all of it. Yeah. But thank you for asking me that. Sorry, I can't give a more definitive answer.
All right. Last parting shots. Go once.
Juicy, I don't think you answered what your favorite skins were and why.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so at least so far as what I've explored, vampire, I really liked playing werewolf, and I really, really want to play witch. Those three right now are at the top of my list, but generally speaking, I actually have like the mirrored take of Abby, is I really like finding vulnerability in like monstrosity and power, and I like exploring those like tensions within those characters. So like within Bobby, it's that fight for control, right? And I see that as like the core fight within the skin of the werewolf. And like for vampire, there are other kinds of struggles that character can have, and the witch has their own. But I like digging into what that means. But I also like exploring the horrible things they can do and really leaning into them when the time is right. So like when Bobby went into his darkest self, he's going to completely lose control, and then it's time to explore the like deliciousness of the horrible things he can do and just embrace it completely, regardless of what the emotional fallout is going to be when he's done. And I find that something really fun and interesting. So yeah, the more monstrous and really dangerous skins are the ones I'm really interested in, and those are the ones I find great pleasure in playing. Yeah.
Wonderful. All fantastic answers, and it really shows how each of you give deep consideration into the origins, the analogous meaning behind the various skins, and I applaud your courage in exploring those darker parts of the psyche and of trauma and the emotional turmoil that all of it can bring. It has been an absolute pleasure to watch you all perform each week that we've done this. I sit here, run tech, I play this music, and I just love my little small part in that. Just adding to the ambiance as...
And we are so thankful for it because I don't know a thing about tech. So the fact that you do this so that I can put on this show it means so much to me.
It's been a pleasure, and so thank you for having me along for the ride. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our wonderful audience for especially Drake Fires for all your wonderful questions. Thank you so much for being engaged with us, and we hope that even though we didn't have a full session tonight, that you all enjoyed this little fireside chat and got something from it. We will be back. I believe we are considering moving to a weekly schedule, so we may start that up very, very soon, but just keep on the lookout. I know that Juicy does a lot of advertising for this show, so thank you so much, Juicy, for that. Honestly, I try to keep it in mind, but I've got so much else going on that I often forget, so thank you. And yeah, if you like this show, please tell others, have them come watch the show, watch our videos on YouTube under Mistress Winter's Court. They are all there currently, and so you can get them all caught up to what our students are doing. We'll go ahead and sign off. We will start off with Emma.
Oh, okay. I'm not used to being the one that starts. Hi, everybody. My name is Emma. I am a voice actor and TTRPG content creator with my podcast network, Tabletop Tailspinners. We currently have now 2 podcasts releasing as of today. We have Chronicles of Kriath, which I DM, which is a long-running D&D 5e campaign. And then for those who want something shorter and sweeter, we have Improv Madness, which released today. That is a D&D 5e improvised podcast where no one comes in with anything prepared and characters and the one-shot are rolled up on the spot. Our first episode of that actually released this morning. So if you want to go check that out, I believe we have a link tree. We are also on the usual socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. And we will be having quite a bit of all 3 of these wonderful people featured there later in the year as well. As Winter said, we are developing that Monsterhearts podcast. And she was a part of that wonderful Darkened Skies is the name 10 Candles mini-series that will be coming out for spooky season. So keep an eye out for that as well.
Absolutely. And if you are interested in learning more, there is a link in the chat next to Emma's name. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Juicy.
Hi, I'm Juicy Garland. I'm a Boston area drag queen and super nerd. You can find me in person next month up in Concord, New Hampshire, but you can also find me on the internets at thetwitter.com at juicygarland, one word, on Blue Sky, same, and at Instagram at juicy.garland. You can also find me on Fridays at Cybernation Uncensored's Twitch channel, where I play Cyberpunk Red. And I have a handful of things that are being cooked up for streaming and for audio. And I'm really, really excited for those to be coming out. God, I need more creepy games in my life, and I'm very excited to have them coming up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here and being a part of this. And our wonderful and amazing MC, Abby Marie Carter.
Hi everyone, I am your mistress of ceremonies, though not so much that role tonight. Abby Marie Carter. What do I do? What do I not do, honestly? What I do is, well, I'm an LA-based actor, aspiring actor, writer, and all-around nerd. I am here on Mistress Winter's Court pretty much every Monday. I was gone this week, dealing with some personal stuff, but pretty much every Monday playing Ahira, a doll come to life who likes to stab people with her needle spear when they threaten her friends. She's an adorable little Southern belle, and I love her so much, so come check us out. I am here running Ravenwood every other Thursday, but soon to be every Thursday until we finish the series out. If you want to see more of what I have done on the past, I have been a part of some of the Tabletop Tuesdays on Mistress Winter's Court. You can check out those VODs on the YouTube channel. I have been a part of a Sagas playtest called Grimm, where I played a little mouse. It's a steampunk Victorian horror game. It's a 3-part session. Stouffer is in that with me. It is over on the OKSDM YouTube channel, so go check that out. I also played the Mortal in a Monsterhearts campaign over on Heroes and Hooligans called Graffitied Hearts, and those VODs are still up on their YouTube channel. I'm also getting ready to be a part of a Monsterhearts podcast with Emma's Tabletop Tailspinners Network, and with Juicy and Winter. I'm very excited to be a part of it and to be playing a new skin, The Hunted, which is more victimhood, power and victimhood. I clearly have an obsession with that. For now, that is all I do, though I'm getting ready to move and hopefully have more free time in my evenings because I'll be on the East Coast instead of the West Coast, so I might be picking up some new things. Who knows? But that's all I do for right now. If you want to get in contact with me, I'm on Instagram at Abby_Marie_Carter, and in many Discords, but particularly the Mistress Winter's Court Discord at Abby Marie Carter. So feel free to friend me, follow me, chat with me. I love making new friends. And thank you so much to my players for just being here and being wonderful players in this series and making this story with me. Thank you to Winter for all that you do behind the scenes and helping me be able to put this on. And thank you so much to our audience. I cannot thank y'all enough. As I said, I was terrified to do this, and part of the reason I'm not so scared of it anymore is because of how wonderful y'all have been and how supportive, and it makes me tear up pretty much every single time we end a session with y'all saying just how great it was and things like that. This is a very personal thing to me, this storytelling, so the fact that y'all are enjoying it and continuing to come back means the absolute world to me. I can never thank y'all enough, so thank you.
Thank you so much. And I have been your host and producer for this episode and previous episodes of Ravenwood, a Monsterhearts 2 story. You can find me at gmistresswinter on Twitter and Instagram. I am a writer, graphic designer, aspiring voice actress, and all-around TTRPG hobbyist. I am involved in most of what goes on here on my channel, Mistress Winter's Court, including being the GM for the Facet that happens every Monday, the producer here. I ran several of the Tabletop Tuesdays, though I certainly hope that some people will want to jump in and run their own things there. I am getting really excited to and prepared to run a Horizon Zero Dawn series using the new Sagas system by the OKSGM, OKSDM. We will be premiering that here on this channel on the 5th. So keep an eye out for more information on that, but I am really excited. We're gonna make something really special out of that. And then I am going to be emceeing that Monsterhearts podcast through the Tabletop Tailspinners Network. And I'm really excited for that to come out as well. Look for that in October as well. So thank you again to our wonderful audience. Thank you to our MC Abby and our wonderful players who are able to be here. We hope you will return possibly even next week for another full episode of Ravenwood, a Monsterhearts 2 story. I hope you all have a great night and a wonderful weekend, and we will see you soon. Have a good night.